Hi, I'm James DeFreitas, and we're with Ask Mr. Greenthumb Show today, and we're at Folly Farms.
And we are glad that we're going to talk with our old friend Tanja, who's going to tell us a little bit about the orchard that they have here.
Yeah, they've got lots of fruits that we're going to take a look at, from guavas to miracle fruit. Stay tuned because you're really going to enjoy it.
Come grow with Stan and James DeFreitas on the Ask Mr. Greenthumb Show. With a multitude of popular plant information, learn how to identify, grow, nourish, and explore the wonderful world of green lush gardens. We hope to enlighten your senses with new ways to plant healthy greenery. You too can get the Greenthumb blessing. Come grow with Stan and James DeFreitas on the Ask Mr. Greenthumb Show.
Tanja, I'm so happy to be here at this orchard and area where people can learn to grow fruit trees. Tell me a little bit about how it started.
It's a really interesting story. So George Weiss, he owned 10 acres in the city of Safety Harbor. So after his wife passed away, he donated the land, which was a horse farm, to the city of Safety Harbor. And so it's 10 acres in the middle, and they made it into a really nice park in Safety Harbor. And they have a number of different things in this park. They have 40 different gardening plots for a community garden, and they actually allowed a group of volunteers to plant over 200 fruit trees as a community orchard in a city park, which the fruit is then available to anybody who wants to come and pick it. And there's a butterfly garden, there's a trail, there's a whole native area. It's a really unique park.
That's amazing. I think it's just great that we have all these fruit trees, and I think it's something that a lot of cities around the country could benefit. I mean, community gardens are something, I started one about 30 years ago in the city of St. Petersburg, but I'm glad to see that was kind of unique then.
Yeah.
And now it's sort of the norm.
It's expanding. I know of a lot of local community gardens, but the community orchards are a thing that take a little bit less work, and then they're there for hundreds of years to come for people to enjoy, which is wonderful.
I think it's great. I think it's great for people and children, and for the young and the young at heart,
Yes.
to kind of get to see fruit trees. I mean, people see things wrapped up in plastic at their local grocery store, but to see something growing and flowering and producing, and the miracle of the butterflies and bees doing their job, I just think that's really great for all generations to see.
It really is, and it's wonderful that the city of Safety Harbor actually puts educational signs with a lot of the fruit trees as well.
Well, I think that is good too, because sometimes you come across something like what we have behind us here, and I actually have never come across a peanut butter tree before. But tell me a little bit about it.
So the peanut butter tree is kind of fun. It has these beautiful little yellow flowers that kind of look like little mini orchid flowers. And then once the flowers get pollinated, it starts with little green fruit.
Right. And
so the green fruit gets larger, and the orange fruit is the middle stage, and then you can kind of see how it's just starting to turn red. At this stage, it kind of tastes like a carrot, which isn't that great.
Which it looks like.
Yeah, if you wait another week, this fruit is going to turn bright red and kind of squishy, and it tastes exactly like peanut butter, hence the name peanut butter fruit.
And my son will be running around here looking for the jelly tree, but
Yes.
so we can have peanut butter and jelly. But
Yeah.
We've got guava over here, so we can make some jelly from it.
We can.
Or strawberries, we could make some good jelly from that as well.
We have some figs fruiting too, so I bet that would be a good combo.
I wonder if anybody's ever taken that and spread it out on bread and made like a peanut P&J from it.
From what I've heard, it's pretty popular doing that, and also in smoothies, getting that peanut butter flavor.
Now I see we've also, of course, got carambolas over here, which we should look at, and we've got some spinach, or kind of a leafy substitute next to you.
That is called, its nickname is tree spinach, but it's called chaya, and it has 4 times the iron as regular spinach does, which is kind of unique. You do have to boil it first for about 10 minutes, and then you can cook it like a collard green or a kale, and it's delicious, in my opinion.
Wow, we'll have to try some of that sometime.
Yeah.
So that's a different alternative. Tanya, now I know we've got behind us a mulberry tree here, and it has this huge big leaf, and it has really tasty fruit, right?
It does, and it's funny. Well, mulberry you can get red, you can get black, white, and pink. So there's a number of different varieties of mulberries you can get. Actually, some of them even have edible leaves, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So it's multi-purpose for a tree. But yeah, in this park we have black, red, and white planted, all in different locations.
That's interesting. I know they're really good and high in vitamin C and a lot of other
Antioxidants.
phytonutrients. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Well, I think a lot of folks today are thinking more about that too, the phytonutrients and the antioxidants, which no one talked about much 20 years ago, only a few.
Yeah.
Today it's almost mainstream that everybody's thinking about what could I grow that might give me that little bit of advantage.
Well, mulberries are wonderful in that case because they kind of taste like a raspberry or a blackberry. Now they don't ship as well, so you don't see them as often, but they're really easy to grow actually in your yard, which is wonderful. They grow from cuttings, or you can get them pretty cheap in the store, and they usually fruit within the first year.
Which is unusual, because some fruit trees and stuff, if they're not grafted, will take 7, 10, 12 years to fruit.
Potentially, yeah.
So if you can get something to fruit in a year or two, that's grand.
Yes, mulberry is a quick one to feel like that immediate gratification of I planted this and it's going to give me fruit pretty close to right away.
I remember being a kid climbing up in some gnarly looking mulberry trees and to get the fruit, and of course I would always come home with blue and black around my mouth and stuff, which it was pretty obvious where I had been.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was just a neat thing to have. And then for some reason, it seemed like that sort of went out of favor because I didn't see them like I had as a kid.
Well, mulberries are kind of tricky because they get kind of big and they produce a lot of fruit. So what will happen is that a lot of homeowners, they can't eat as much as it produces. So instead of just trimming it back, they end up cutting it down. But in my opinion, just keep it short and you can gather a lot of fruit. Makes
good sense to me. Now I see we've got carambolas, which of course you have at your house.
Yes.
But also I see it here at the park and I see fruit on it. Now that's another one that's, some of them taste different than others. I've had some that I really liked and others that I thought, some kind of reminded me of like a kind of a Kool-Aid flavor, I guess, or citrusy sort of. Or some were more astringent and some were more sweet.
The varieties, you got to pay attention to the varieties with starfruit or carambola. It ranges from really sour and you can use it like almost like a lemon or lime and is great in smoothies, all the way to so sweet it's like sugar. So it really just depends on the varieties, and you just have to research it and figure out exactly what flavor you think you would like and plant that tree.
Which kind of reminds me of another fruit tree we have here, which is the mango.
Yes.
And mangoes, one of the first mangoes I ever tasted was called turpentine. And it tasted like turpentine.
Oh, I don't think, that wouldn't be possible.
Now you have some that, are very flavorful. I mean, they're just really, it's almost like eating ice cream.
Yeah, we have, actually, I think there is a variety called ice cream. We have, I think, 8 planted at our house, and then I think there's about that many here in this park as well.
So it's another one that's it's a tropical. Probably, up north people would have to have a greenhouse or something to grow it, because it won't take the cold, as so many of these trees here won't. But still, I think for collectors, they could have them, and a lot of people do have, all kind of lean-tos and greenhouses and things where they'll grow something in an area where they're not supposed to be able to grow it.
I've heard of some people up north growing them in greenhouses, but primarily Florida is as far north as you're really going to find mangoes. They really thrive in zone 9 and 10, 11-ish, because you need that little bit of cold spell to set off the flowering. But you don't want it so cold that the tree's going to die. So Florida seems to be a nice area to grow it, but I have heard of it growing up north, but you have to keep it, protected from the cold.
Well, in California would be another place similar to us, and maybe some areas of maybe New Mexico and some other areas where maybe water might be more of a problem, but as long as you can get them water and you could protect them somewhat, you're not below that freezing point. And there again, even with freezing, something can get to a freezing point for an hour is one thing. If it stays there for 8 hours
or 8 weeks,
it's a big difference.
Yes.
And I find that. And the other problem for some folks too, let's say they're trying to grow apples or peaches here, they sometimes have problems in the warmer areas that you need a certain amount of chilling time.
It's interesting, and we've been kind of lucky now because the University of Florida has developed a lot of varieties, especially like peaches, which normally needed a lot of chill hours. They've gotten some varieties that they only need 100 chill hours, so they can grow peaches now as low as, Miami. Yeah,
which is amazing to me. And so that is good, and many of the peaches and apples and things that we considered had to be northern, they've adapted through hybridization to have varieties that can be pretty much all over the country.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool that you can have it everywhere.
It is. It's nice because then you're able to grow a larger variety of fruit trees and have exactly what you need growing locally.
Now, I saw you also said they've got some tamarind, which is not so much, it is a fruit, I guess, we're eating. But explain about that a little.
So the tamarind's interesting. It's like almost, there's sweet and there's sour varieties, and it's almost like a seed pod where there's multiple seeds inside of it, kind of like a green bean or a snow pea, except you eat the fruit that is around the seed. So you peel open the pod, and then you get these seeds that are kind of covered with this almost like a fig type material, and so you chew on that and you're able to either get the sweet or the sour.
Okay, kind of reminds me of the lychee too. You've got that
Yes.
big round fruit, and then it's just sort of this gelatin around it that's quite tasty.
Yeah.
But you see this big red outer seed capsule type thing, and then the inside, and then of course you have a seed inside, which you're not going to eat, but...
Yes, we have the lychee growing here as well. But yeah, it is funny. It kind of reminds me of an eyeball when you open it up.
It does. Yeah, it has that kind of translucent look to it.
It does.
I know that many folks who are from the Orient, really, it is one that they really will go after to try to find.
It is delicious, so I can see why that's popular.
It's true. Well, I think we've talked about a number of fruit trees. We'll take a look at some of the others. Tanya, we've got a lemon over here that is just huge in size. What is it?
It's a ponderosa lemon, where normally lemons are, you know, probably about 3 inches, where ponderosa lemons are something pretty special, where they are the size of a grapefruit. They are big. You can pretty much get a cup of juice per lemon, which is interesting.
I saw my son getting ready to drill it to make a bowling ball, so I knew that he was impressed with it. So it's a good size one, and you don't need too many of those to make a pie, I wouldn't think.
You don't, yeah. You can use it for pretty much anything you use lemons for, and it provides a lot of juice. So, I mean, it's a pretty significant size. I mean, it is the size of a grapefruit. So.
The only thing I can think of bigger would be that pomelo that you mentioned, which is also known as the shaddock. It was actually named for a Captain Shaddock who found it, and actually, I think I interviewed his great-great-great-grandson who was a meteorologist a few years ago. So. It's a small world.
Yeah, it is a small world. That's interesting.
And so when we talk about different fruit trees, now we talked about loquat, or we haven't talked about loquat, but we should. It's one that really has some interesting fruit.
Yeah, I think they call it, another nickname is Japanese plum, and it grows everywhere. You'll see it everywhere, from like in the middle of the woods to parking lots. So it's kind of cool. It's probably about 2 inches long, and it looks like almost like a mini peach, and it has a very similar flavor. Its fruit is pretty sweet and similar to a peach.
And it should be, because it's in the same general family, which is the Rosaceae family, which is also, you know, the apples and oranges and loquats are all in that same major group.
I didn't know that.
Well, I got to know a few things here.
You are the expert.
Well, we try. And but it's, I think, very interesting fruit, and that some of them can be really quite tasty. I've never come across a bad one, but some I've come across that I thought were better than others.
There are some really good varieties. I mean, some of them are kind of bland and they're small and seedy, but there's a lot of new varieties like Christmas and Champagne that are actually pretty big, and they have a sweet, juicy fruit, which is nice.
So we've got that. We've also, I see you've got a big banana area down here, and you said there's a bunch of different varieties?
There are. So the bananas are kind of cool, where you can just take a chunk of the rhizome underneath and plant that somewhere else, and you're going to get a banana tree. So for this particular banana circle, we took all the different gardeners, we got a bunch of donations, and we got about 15 different varieties of bananas, and we were able to plant them in a circle. And in the center of that circle is the garden's compost area. So you're able to all of the different waste products from the leaves and all of the different clippings all go in the center of this banana circle, and that breaks down and it produces good soil and nutrients for the bananas that are surrounding it. So even right now, there's probably about 500 bananas in this one circle.
Which is great. We might also mention that bananas are heavy feeders, and that also works well. That same plan would work well for figs too, because they have a lot of problems with nematodes. But if you can really improve that organic matter, you can actually get some beneficial bacteria that eat upon some of the nematodes.
Oh, that's a good tip.
So for a lot of folks who are saying, I put my little fig out and it didn't do that well, if you really make that your compost area, you can naturally kind of cure some of the nematode problem by just getting that organic matter up.
I'm sure that will probably benefit a lot of the fruit trees, is having the high organic matter.
Well, especially when your soil is very sandy. The more the better.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's look at the butterfly garden. You know, you've got a nice area for kids and they've got a nice area for butterflies as well here.
This park was really uniquely designed where it has a kid's playground, there's the community garden, there's the community orchard, there's the nature trails, but then there's also this really beautiful butterfly garden with hundreds of different varieties of butterfly, both host plants and nectar plants, and you'll see hundreds of butterflies pretty much every single day just around. We even got to see one emerge today, which is neat. And they're, you know, everything from monarchs to Gulf fritillaries to sulfur butterflies. There's just hundreds of them just flying around.
Well, we've got one here that you say have just come out of the chrysalis stage, which I think is kind of amazing. And it hasn't really started to move its wings yet. So it's probably here, as you say, it could be 10 minutes, it could be a couple hours.
It could be. I think when they come out, they come out and they look kind of weird, and their wings are all crumpled up, and it takes them a little bit of time to spread out their wings and have them almost solidify, and then they practice using their wings and then they'll fly off. So I don't know how long ago that one emerged, but it's been there for a while, so it could be, like you said, 10 minutes to a couple hours just hanging around.
I think I saw him flying back behind here now.
Yeah, there's a lot of them around, so I see a yellow sulfur and
monarchs and all kinds. You've got a great collection here, and it's beautiful. The nice thing about the butterfly plants, most of them that have the long tubular flowers are also quite attractive.
They are beautiful, and a lot of them are hummingbird plants too, which is nice. So there's a lot of nature in this park. You'll see everything from the butterflies, the hummingbirds, to owls and hawks, foxes, bobcats, snakes. I mean, there's everything in this park.
You've got a little bit of everything for everybody. That's a really wonderful park, I think, when you can say, hey, we've got a little bit of something for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
And Dad, we're at Folly Farm again, and it looks like we have some interesting plants here that we didn't cover in the last segments. The one behind me.
We do. It's a passion fruit, and you like passion fruit, right?
I absolutely do. It's lovely.
Probably had passion fruit and some drinks and stuff at some time in your life.
I'm sure I have.
And the passion fruit is from Brazil and Argentina, and it has kind of a gangly, viney. You know, we've seen a lot of trees, but this particular one is sort of a give it something to climb on, and it's a happy camper.
So apparently this is why they chose to put it on this fence here.
They did, and
it's a natural place to act as like a trellis.
Now this one will actually put on more fruit. We actually had one of the red ones at our other house that we lived at that covered a lot of the, must have been 100 feet of fence at one point, with a big red passion flower.
Oh, okay.
Now the name is Passiflora edulis, which the English came up with, but for a South American plant.
Right.
But the fruit is kind of bulb-like, and it's often cut open, and once it's mature, it'll make an interesting addition to fruits, fruit juices, as they often used for fruit juice as much as anything else.
Well, that would make sense, because our previous guest Tanja was talking about most of the stuff we talked before. She says it's great for, you know, grinding up and putting into smoothies, and it seems like she's a smoothie kind of person.
Well, it seems like half of the world today are smoothie people.
Sure.
And probably good for you to have some smoothies, and another way to incorporate, you know, this high in vitamin A, vitamin C, which this is, and we know those are good for your, you know, phytonutrients and helping your immune system, which a lot of folks didn't think about many years ago. Today it's sort of the passion, passion fruit, for people to incorporate more of these edibles into their smoothies.
Now, for taking care of this thing, you just plant it and go, or is this a rough and tough kind of deal, or what do we do as far as taking care of it?
Well, it takes conditions pretty well once it's established. You don't have to do too much, don't have to water it all the time, you don't have to baby it. It's not real cold hardy.
Okay, so if we get a hard freeze, this guy could be a goner.
He could be gone or to the ground. So in protected areas or cold areas, you'd have to have it in some kind of a covering, maybe with some type of a heat source to protect it. But of course, in Florida, California, New Mexico, some areas where you're not getting to freezing very often, you wouldn't have to worry about that. It would get a little bit of a tinge of cold, would maybe die back a little bit, but would normally come back with big gusto.
Sure. Well, and I know that the city workers that work for the City of Safety Harbor would be out here with their blankets because they're that astute at taking care of everything around here. They're always so concentrated on making sure they're worried about the plants around here.
Exactly. I'm sure they are.